White oppressive forces took control of the hip hop industry and weaponized it against the African American culture. They're waging a covert war against us that most don't understand. This is why those of us who knows the truth must teach African proverb. Most people naively believes that the media reflects our reality, but in truth it is more often we that imitates what we see and learn from the media. A group's identity is shaped by how they repeatedly see themselves being depicted within the media. Because people often imitates and becomes those false derogatory media depictions of their group that they've accepted as being their true reality. Therefore, those who controls the people's media images literally controls their culture. It's a true and well-proven social science called media social engineering. Because white oppressive forces controls the media images of African Americans, this therefore allows them to negatively steer the African American culture while misleading us to believe that we're negatively steering ourselves. They took control of the hip hop industry and uses it to negatively shape and steer the African American culture through negative media social engineering. It's the true reason why millions of African Americans now self-identifies by the N-word, calls ourselves thugs, calls our women B's and H's, sags our pants, and glorifies pimps. These behaviors among the African American culture are actually testaments of the immense power of white negative media social engineering. This is not some feeble attempt at scapegoating to absolve ourselves of our own responsibilities. It's the absolute truth. The subliminal manipulation of large targeted populations through media social engineering is a real and well-proven social science that white oppressive forces have totally mastered. Presently, the hip-hop industry is continuously being used to covertly negatively steer the African American culture. And we African Americans are more susceptible to negative media social engineering because we've been totally stripped of our true identity and culture during the enslavement of our ancestors. The hip-hop industry has been used to shift black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirect it against ourselves as well. This was achieved through rap lyrics with the repetitive theme of black aggressions being directed toward black people. That propaganda campaign also conveys a subliminal message that it's we black people that are now our own worst enemies, which profoundly divides our ranks. It's why we're always mean-mugging each other. The white ruling class secretly perceives black rappers as being useful idiots. In addition to making lots of money by exploiting their talents, they uses them to negatively steer the black culture. Because most black rappers have never heard about the science of negative media social engineering, most people have not. Therefore, they're unaware of the actual damage that they're doing to their people and their culture. Their ignorance is being exploited by white oppressive forces. Although the white-controlled hip-hop music industry is presently being used to negatively steer the African American culture, the negative distortion of our culture actually began through black exploitation films beginning during the late 1960s. Through black exploitation films. Black exploitation is a term coined in the 1970s to refer to black films that were aimed at black audiences, featuring African American actors in lead roles. That the films frequently depicted stereotypical characterization and glorification of violence. It was that era's black exploitation films that first conditioned African American youths on a national level to believe that it was cool and trendy to call ourselves by the N-word. In those films, most often written, directed, and produced by white people, black actors were hired to shuck and jive and repeatedly call themselves by the N-word. The N-word indoctrination process was repeated and reinforced countless of times in many black exploitation films. Here's a list of just a few of those films. The Black Klansman in 1968, Black Like Me, 1964. Black Lolita, 1975. Black Mama, White Mama, 1973. Black Rage, 1972. Scream, Blackula Scream, 1973. Shaft, 1971. Shaft in Africa, 1973. Shaft Big Score, 1972. Sheba Baby, 1975, etc., etc. Within each of these films produced by white movie studios, black actors were hired to routinely call themselves by the N-word. Some of those films blatantly included the N-word in its title, such as Boss Nigger, 1975, Black Run Negro Run, 1974, and The Soul of Nigger Charlie, 1973. I'm using the word nigger so that my video won't be flagged. I'm using nigger in place. Now, those black exploitation films were well received by many African American audiences because they provided them with a cinematic black heroes on the silver screen in a portrayal unseen in most Hollywood pictures prior to that time. Therefore, African American audiences flocked to theater in droves to see themselves being represented as heroes on the big screen. Many black audiences believing that those fictional movie characters were true, accurate representation of our group as a collective whole began imitating what they saw in the movie. This included self-identifying themselves by the N-word. Through this system, millions of African Americans were socially engineered to start calling themselves by the N-word. The reasons why they socially engineered us to call ourselves by the N-word is because to subjugate and to control a targeted population, the first step is to neutralize their alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the males that are psychologically wired to protect our females and our communities. White social scientists neutralize our black alpha males by socially engineering us to self-identify ourselves by the N-words. They did this because words, when repeated often enough, has immense power over the subconscious mind. Repeated words shapes our thoughts, and our thoughts, held long enough by words repeated often enough, becomes a belief. A belief then becomes our biology. We psychologically become the words that we repeatedly call ourselves. This is why women that proclaim themselves as being bees often become stubbornly unreasonable. It's also why men that proclaim themselves as being thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. Words places spells upon our subconscious minds. We function based upon the words that we repeatedly call ourselves. This is a psychological phenomenon that white social scientists have thoroughly researched. When we repeatedly call ourselves by the N-word, this psychology conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, subordinate, inferior identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance and social capital over us. White social scientists describe what they've done to black people as merely instilling a value system into the collective subconscious minds of the black masses that makes us adhere to the authority and the existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. We also treat others based upon the words we call them. When we call each other by the N-words, we dehumanize each other, which makes it easier for us to mistreat each other. It's a fact that the military has known for a very long time. Case, point, and proof. During the Vietnam War, to ease the American soldiers' anxieties about torturing and killing the Vietnamese soldiers, they were taught to refer to them by derogatory Asian slangs. This dehumanized them and made it easier to kill and torture them. This was been done to us. Have you ever listened closely whenever a black man speaks of a previous attack against another black man? As he presents the detail of the attack, he will say that I hit that end, I kicked that end, I shot that end, etc., etc. The term that end that Negro, is actually being used to dehumanize the other black man. If you then ask the speaker to retell the details of the attack, this time replacing the word "that in" with the words "my brother," he will then become he will again psychologically struggle to tell the story. The more brutal that his behavior was, the more difficult it becomes to tell the story without dehumanizing his victim. He may become angry for being asked to tell the story without dehumanizing his opponent. This is what's been done to us. Through negative media social engineering, white oppressive forces have placed an elaborate spell upon the subconscious minds of millions of African Americans with the N-word. The white prison industry is filled with black men that have been programmed to believe that they are real N's. White social engineering scientists deliberately program millions of black men to believe this, to create this agenda where we are functioning lower and we are dehumanizing each other. Calling ourselves by the N-word also separates us from our unifying African heritage, because without having a base identity to connect to our vast cultural wealth, over time we become further fragmented and become weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us to be. And every couple of decades, white propaganda creates and feeds false information into our communities to give us new reason to continue calling ourselves by the N-word. Several years back, they created the narrative that changing the spelling to Nigga now empowers us. Oh, now they have us calling ourselves the word niggers, which is an Ethiopian word in Africa meaning king. But the truth is that the N-word by any spelling still has the same negative impact upon us because the subconscious mind doesn't see the different spelling. They are waging a covert war against us. We must wake up to our reality. The time of believing in falsehood, the time of such prevailing ignorance is over. We must elevate our minds. The white society deploys psychological warfare against the black population. They do so through what's called information warfare. Information warfare is where you feed disinformation to a targeted population that makes them think and behave in ways that are against our own interests and in ways that serve the white society. Those of us who are telling you the truth are trying to free you from a mental prison that you don't even know you're trapped within. It is time to wake up to our reality. One love and peace.